For this lesson, let's talk about functions, what it does, what is it for, and how you can create your own functions. So first of all, what is a function? A function is a block of statements that can be used repeatedly in a program. Now, there are two types of functions. The first type of function is called the built-in functions, and the second type of function is called user-defined functions. Now, built-in functions are the functions that were provided already by PHP. For example, rand function to create random numbers. We're not going to talk about all of the built-in functions because they'll take us months to be over. So if you want to learn more about built-in functions, you can go over to PHP's documentation. I'll put the link in the lesson description. Or if you're in YouTube, they'll be in the video description. Alright, now let's talk about user-defined functions. User-defined functions are the functions that are created by you or us developers. So for example, there is no built-in function in PHP that can, for example, move a dog from one area to another. But you also want to move the cat from one area to another. So you create a function so you can use it again and again and again regardless if it's a dog or a cat. And that's what makes function really useful. You create a function so you can use it repeatedly. Now, how can you create a function? Let's go over back to our index.php and actually let's get rid of the if statements as well as the variables that were created in the previous lesson. And to create a new function, first you type function and then you define the name of your function. So I'll call my function move animal, for example. And then next is open and close parentheses. And I'll explain why you need to put parentheses for this function. And then next is open and close curly braces. And so inside of this is the block statements that you wish to process step by step. So for example, in here, I want to display, for example, echo. I'll use echo statement and I'll display, I moved the animal from one area to another. Just example. And I'll end it with semicolon. And then if I save this and open our front end or our website, and if I refresh this, as you can see, there is nothing. That's because we didn't call the function yet. To call this function, all you need to do is to type move animal. As you can see, it's defined in here. So we can just press enter or you can type it manually. So I move animal and then open and close parentheses and then end it with semicolon. So this is how you create a function. This is how you call a function. Now, if I save this and go back to our website, and there you go. Now we have I moved the animal from one area to another. Now, what if we call the function before we even define the function? Let's try that. So I'll just move this by pressing Ctrl X to cut it out and I'll paste it just above the definition or before we define the function. So I'll just paste it right over here. So I called it first before I even defined it. So what do you think is going to happen? Is it gonna work or is it going to give me an error? Let's find out. So I'll just save this and I'll open my front end. And if I refresh this, it's still working. Why is that? Because it doesn't really matter where you define your function. Even if you define it after you call it, it will still work because PHP will look for this function if it exists. If it doesn't exist, then it will give us an error. So for example, I removed the function that we defined. So I'll just save this. And if I refresh my website, so fatal error, uncaught error, call to undefined function move animal. So PHP or our index.php can find where is it. It's not a built-in function either, so it's undefined. So if we go back to our VS Code and if we put it back, for example, in here, or let's say actually, let's cut this out and I want to define it right at the end of my PHP template file, so or index.php. So I'll just paste it right over here and I'll save this and I open my website again. And if I refresh this and there you go, now it is working. Now let's go back to our VS Code once again. I'll just fix this. I want to put this just before, I want to place this above the call. So I'll just fix this. I'll get rid of the space. We don't need a lot of space. And now just a quick tip before we proceed. I highly recommend you create the function first before you call it. That way, your code will be much easier to read. And when you, say, for example, you open your files again, you know exactly where your functions are located. To me personally, I like to create a separate file for my functions. So what I do is I create a new file and say, for example, I call it functions.php. And then inside of that file, I create all of the functions that I need. And then I will reference that file in my index.php and then I will call the functions. That way, it's much easier for me to find where my functions are located. Actually, let's do that. In here, I'll create a new file and I'll call this moveanimal.php. And then inside of this file, I'll create a new PHP tag, PHP. And inside of this, I'll copy the function. I'll just cut this out and I'll just paste it inside of our PHP. So in this file, we have the function moveAnimal. So I'll just save this. And in our index.php, we need to reference the file. So at the very top of PHP tag, or you can create a new PHP tag over here. So it's much cleaner. So I'll create a PHP tag in here. I'll close it as well. And in here, I'll use the function called include once and then open and close parentheses and end that with semicolon. Now, remember I talked about parentheses, why you need to add parentheses. Because some functions require you to provide an argument or a data that the function can use so it can function correctly. So if you actually don't provide an argument in this parentheses, it will give us an error, I hope. So I assume. And there you go. Now it gives us an error. The include one statements includes and evaluates a specified file during execution of the script. So include was may be used in cases where the same file might be included. So that's what we're going to do. And as you can see, there's an error called unexpected closing parentheses because it expects us to provide an argument. Now the argument for this function is a string. So let's add a string in here and I'll reference the file moveanimal.php. And if I save this, the error will disappear. And if I go back to our front end, if I refresh this, it's still working. And actually, if I change, say for example, I move the animal from one area to another, and this function is in another file. So if I save this and open our front end again, there you go. It says I moved the animal from one area to another, and this function is in another file. Awesome. Now let's create a function where we can also ask for a data whenever we call it or whenever we use it. So to create a parameter, it's called parameter, and there's actually two types of data that you pass in parentheses. The first is parameter and the second is argument. Parameters are the variables that you create in a function. Whenever you define a function, parameters is what you provide in here. So for example, I want to pass a parameter. I want to create in here, let's say name, and then that is a parameter. But if I actually save this and open our front end, there you go. Now it's expecting an argument because now we have in here a parameter. So this is a parameter, and then what you provide in the function that you call is an argument. So in here, we need to send an argument, which is either a string or an integer. So we didn't actually define what data type is this because PHP doesn't really need you to define a variable. So we can actually pass in here a string. So I'll just call this, for example, dog. So move animal dog. And I'll save this. And in here in move animal, I move the animal. And actually instead of animal, I want to concatenate the name variable. So I'll just type in here dot and then the variable name and then concatenate it with the following string. So I moved the name, which is dog, from one area to another. So if I save this and if we open our front end, there you go. Now it's working. So I moved the dog from one area to another. And this function is in another file. Awesome. So that is how you create functions in PHP. So if you want to create another parameter, say for example, you want to accept one or more data whenever you call a function. So to do that, all you need is to type comma and create another parameter. So say for example, place, and then I'll save this, and then I'll pass another argument in here, and that should be the place, right? So the name and then the place. So which place you want to pass in here. So for example, cave, for example. So I save this, and in our move animal, we want to use this variable or this parameter. So I move the name from, say for example, I'll just, instead of one area, I'll concatenate the place variable. And now it should render, I moved the dog from cave to another. And this function is in another file. Actually, let me just get rid of this text. And then if I save this, and let's go back to PHP, and now let's go back to our front end. And if I refresh this, and there you go, I moved the dog from cave to another, and that is working. Now let's say I want to add another one, but this time it's an integer. All right, so in here, I'll add a new parameter, and I'll just type in here, say for example, time. For example, time. And then I'll say, for example, I moved the name from place to another at, and then I'll just concatenate the time. There you go. So I moved the name from place to another at time. And I'll save this. Let's open our front end. And as you can see, it says too few arguments. We need to pass another argument. So as you can see, too few arguments function. Two passed, but we're also expecting 3 arguments. So let's go back to our VS Code in our index.php, and let's add another argument in here. So since it's a time, let's use a built-in function of PHP, and that's actually time. So let's actually just close that with parentheses. So that is a built-in function. And let's save this, and let's open our front end. And if I refresh this, there you go. Now I moved the dog from cave to another at, this is time. So it's using a code. Let's actually use a date and time format. So in here, I'll just use minutes, actually hours, and then minutes, and then seconds. So if I save this, let's open our front end. All right, so we get an error. It says time expect exactly 0 parameters. Oh, it doesn't actually require a parameter, or it doesn't actually require an argument. By default, it doesn't have a parameter. So let's actually use a different function, and it's called date. So date is also a built-in function, and it requires you to provide an argument. So this H is hour, I is minute, and S is seconds. If you want to learn more about date formatting, I will put the link about that in the lesson description. So if I save this, let's open our front end. If I refresh this, there we go. Now we have, I moved from cave to another at 10, 11, and 50 seconds. Awesome. And that's how you create and use functions in PHP. In the next lesson, we'll talk about object-oriented programming.